Hello, I'm Mishka, and this channel is the Helsinki Renaissance, where we will be talking about arts and culture in hopefully the most Renaissance man-like manner in which arts and culture has ever been discussed in the history of discussions, so stay tuned for that. Now, this particular video is just me talking about certain tendencies of modern Hollywood, and in my recent Star Wars video that I did called I'm Too Disco for the new Star Wars movies and other shocking stances, I already alluded to the fact that basically Hollywood, how, let's call it the ancien regime at Hollywood, how they approach things is that, well, Spike Lee said that it's apparently easier for a black man to become the president of the United States than to own their own, or to be the head of some sort of a film studio. Now, lots of people have been feeling like the ancient regime at Hollywood, it's just white people there casting other white people in, just very white movies, and the non-white people in North America, they aren't overtly rejoicing about some of that. So basically, how does the ancient regime at Hollywood, how they did things is that they just cast whoever, and whoever who happened to be white, that is, and Hollywood couldn't care less. But then when so many people started protesting over how Hollywood is doing things, well, now when something like half the audience, or no, wait, no, representatives of demographics who claim to be able to represent at least something like half the audience are telling Hollywood that they risk alienating half of the ticket buyers in North America if they don't have greater level of diversity to their product. And then Hollywood is like, wow, we lose money? Never. We'll never do that. So then Hollywood will cast whoever, because, like the people running Hollywood, they couldn't care less about what type of movies they are releasing as long as they keep making the money. So it was the artist who had a problem with the Hays Code when Hollywood had a very strict censoring rule. So Alfred Hitchcock, as an example, he had a huge problem with the idea that there was somebody with a stopwatch measuring how long a screen kiss was allowed to last. So there's a scene in Hitchcock's Notorious where there's a succession of very short screen kisses because they couldn't do one long one. So anyway, the artist had a huge problem with the Hays Code, but the studio CEOs, they couldn't care less. As long as the money was there, they would release whatever. So if Mary Poppins is the way to have blockbusters, then that's what Hollywood is doing. And if some Quentin Tarantino stuff is the way to have blockbusters, then that's what Hollywood is doing. And they don't care. They'll just try to be some sort of a chameleon who adjusts to whatever is the house style of the given century. So notice that Hollywood has started to feel like the times, they are changing, and they better diversify so that 100% of the ticket buyers of North America will be buying tickets. Now, unfortunately, it's not quite so easy. So 100% of the potential customers aren't gonna buy tickets anyway because they are too busy with the other stuff in their life, and a cinematic release quite simply will not be the highest priority for them very many weekends a year. So I think that there is a certain kind of an event core to film going on the theatrical level still, that if there is some sort of a blockbuster release in the summer, I think that there are still audiences who will make that some sort of a priority a couple of weekends, but for Hollywood to think that 100% of the audience will be interested in going to watch movies every week of the year, that seems slightly comical in this particular world order, especially when people are having their Netflix and HBO type stuff. They don't need to leave the house, and they can watch on demand and whatever. So I think that Hollywood will have to try just a bit harder than any hacktastic rubber stamping solutions would allow them to basically win over 100% of the audience. So that seems like a slightly unrealistic paradigm. But anyway, so the new Hays Code-like structure imposed over all of Hollywood is that much like during the Hays Code, a kiss couldn't last for a certain amount of time, and a criminal wasn't allowed to get away with the crime, which is why so many Hollywood movies end with some sort of a standoff between, lots of Hollywood movies end the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid way because the Hays Code demanded. Anyway, so the new code imposed on Hollywood, and by the way, the Hays Code was adopted by the industry because Middle America rebelled against Hollywood, the city slickers trying to be too irreverent and too degenerate. Middle America rebelled, and they were like, we will not buy a single ticket to your movies if you put those sinful ways on screen. And so Hays Code was created because of that. And obviously this new Hays Code of diversity, it's for similar reasons that the audience said that we will not buy your sinful patriarchal products. So Hollywood is like, okay, there's the anti-patriarchal code now, and none of that wrong stuff anymore. And we are, I believe, seeing that brave new world in Hollywood. At least it's on offer. I believe that Hollywood, if they are trying to have successes with this attitude, I believe that they will actually go from failure to failure. And I think that say what you will about the Hays Code era Hollywood, but the studios were in fairly impressive financial positions in that time. So if it was pre-dominance of television era film culture, that is something, but at least the Hays Code was making Hollywood rich. I don't think this new Hays Code of diversity will make Hollywood rich, so one wonders how much they're sticking with it. But I believe that there will be the kind of situation that you will not be allowed to do certain things because Hollywood just fears that there will be negative consumer evaluations if you do. So Hollywood is just going to have that kind of a straitjacketing that's voluntarily going to happen because they just want to play it so safe as they did with the Hays Code of there are certain industry standard operating procedures that you have to restrict yourself to those, and you have to have the superficial diversity there, and well, it will be what it will be, but certainly it won't save Hollywood. And just because you are casting some sort of a United Nations ensemble to the leads, that doesn't mean that all of the people who see that, oh wait, there's one Finnish person in the movie, I will totally go watch. I will totally go watch that movie that had the good sense to cast Samuli Edelman in the summer. So just like I wouldn't go watch a movie just because it has a Finnish person in there if it's a Hollywood release, and lots of Finnish people wouldn't go watch it. So in America, it's not as if everyone will go and watch it. If it's like, hey wait, that person is from a sort of similar background as me. Wow, that's the best movie ever now. So I don't believe that this will make Hollywood rich, because I don't believe that this will keep audiences prioritizing those projects above everything else in their life, because there's diverse artists from other art forms. So let's say there's diversity in television, there's diversity in music, there's diversity in literature, there's diversity in theater, there's diversity in stand-up comedy, there's diversity in opera, there's diversity in whatever. So, if cinema has diversity, well, it's just one of the diversity operation, and the audience isn't guaranteed to prioritize the cinema diversity over the music diversity, or the television diversity, or stand-up diversity. So I don't think that this is a way for Hollywood to keep winning. And I think that unfortunately, as the Star Wars fans have reacted, when they feel like the tonal base of a franchise will be changed, the fans feel like the franchise is being taken away from them and being transformed into something that it never was. And so I think that this is a way for Hollywood to keep chasing new audiences, but I think that in some cases they will probably just alienate the old ones, and the product will start playing to empty theaters, and Hollywood doesn't understand why they did anything wrong, where there's some non-Houdini there, turning about in a straitjacket and not understanding why the audience doesn't think that that's the greatest moment in the history of dance. So, there's that for 2.5 hours. For all who are interested. Now, anyway, I probably would view this thing from a slightly different angle, and basically that other people who are claiming to see some problems in it, in that I think the problem here is that when Hollywood was at the height of their powers, they could have the kind of spirit that, if some young person went into Hollywood and they were completely unknown, no one had ever heard of them, and they were like, can I get a job? And then Hollywood was like, well, we apprentice that person to somebody, and let's see what the kid can do in time, where somebody started out as a bit part actor, then a co-writer, then a assistant director, then gradually directing B films, then directing A films, and then moving up the ranks. Like Hollywood used to have this kind of spirit of let's see what the new would-be professionals can do. But then Hollywood started transitioning to a freelancer model, and basically, if no one had heard of you, Hollywood started assuming that you're a bum, you can't do anything, no one has any interest in you, get away, we only deal in stars. And basically, I think that what Hollywood should have is the kind of an old apprentice model where people are trusting that wannabe artist without the track record can still do something. Like I think that should be the spirit. So you know, if Spike Lee would want that some African Americans get that kind of chance even without the track record of let's see what the wannabe directors what they can do. So you know, I think that something like that would be a simpler solution. That when Hollywood was successful, they had that kind of let's see what the rookies can do. But right now, Hollywood is the kind of situation that they need you to become a star on your own, and then when you become a star, then Hollywood start buzzing around you like flies around, you know what, and I think that that's the problematic situation. That well, I could dismiss how Hollywood does diversity first, and then we'll talk about how it is that I think that the better version should be. So anyway, if we say that there's the Hollywood model and then let's say the Spike Lee model, and I would think that one of those might prove to have superior diversity. But anyway, let's talk about the Hollywood model first. So let's say that I've been watching lots of Edgar Wright movies recently, and I think that hey, that's kind of a neat way of writing comedies. I could write something like that. So let's say that I write something that is sort of dealing with, let's say, some college students going to attend the, what is it, the San Diego Comic Con or wherever the Comic Con is. But anyway, let's just say that there's 5 college students and they're all attending Comic Con. So let's say that there's 5 college students who all like anime on some level, who all play video games, and who all have nostalgia for 80s and 90s action blockbusters. Now, let's say that I write the script with the kind of Simon Pegg, Nick Frost type spirit, where you know, it's essentially 5 versions of the same character. So they're all a bit geeky, but in the kind of normal person way. That you know, they aren't socially awkward. They're just really geekily interested in you know, some Terminator movies, and they're playing Halo, and they're making Dragon Ball Z references, and it's all kind of like the kind of standard geeky stuff that lots of people can immediately recognize. Now, let's say for the sake of argument that I would have written it about like some people who weren't worlds apart from this kind of culture that's around here with well, whatever's going on. So let's say that somebody might think that I just wrote, say, 5 white characters and 5 white male characters who are all pretty similar. So basically that's as homogeneous a group as you can have, and genuine diversity should be a heterogeneous main pool. But how Hollywood does diversity is that they look at my script, they look at 5 college students, okay, that's good. 5 college students doing some vaguely relevant stuff. Okay, that's good. But 5 white college male students, that's not good. We need diversity. So how it is that Hollywood would take my Edgar Wright script is that they would take those 5 roles and they would want 2 female college students and 3 male students, and they would have 3 different ethnicities. So that let's say that there's a white female student, an Asian American female student, let's say a white male student, an African American male student, and a, let's say, Hispanic male student. So anyway, what I'm suggesting is that Hollywood wants to keep that group homogeneous. They just want to feign heterogeneity in the group. But when in reality, like, even if there's like an Asian American woman and Hispanic man, they are still treated exactly in an interchangeable manner. So that the Asian American female's character will not do anything that's drastically different than what, let's say, the African American male student would do, or that the Hispanic male student would do. So that it's still a homogeneous group. They just feign being heterogeneous. And that's the problem with Hollywood and the Hollywood fake diversity that it is doing. So, I would just say for your consideration about is Spike Lee any closer to seeing, the head of Disney or Paramount or Warner Brothers being, well, somebody like Spike Lee? Like, are we any closer to that? Are we any closer to Hollywood starting to change its percentages of how many percentages of writers are, say, diverse? How many percentages of directors are diverse? How many percentages of producers are, say, diverse? So basically, I think that Hollywood is just trying to dupe audiences into thinking that it's more progressive than it really is, because they are just putting that kind of mock diversity as like a, as I said, duping the audience into thinking that there is some sort of a heterogeneous paradigm, where that's the last thing that Hollywood is doing. So just for your consideration, I mean, like, just ask yourself, like, Spike Lee had a very specific problem. He wanted an African American person to be the CEO or the head of development, or to have some sort of a prominent position in the boardroom of a major film studio. And Hollywood isn't facing any pressure for that. They might, but even if Warner Brothers had to hire a black female producer to appease the fans, I think that they would find a way to maintain homogeneity in the boardroom by picking up the kind of candidate who is part of the ancient regime, who understands the industry standard operating procedures, who won't rock the boat and who won't change anything and who won't cause any of the improvements that somebody like Spike Lee would have wanted to see in Hollywood, which is why he kept talking about, wanting something to be different. So anyway, I think that the way that Hollywood could fix this situation and to have what might be the genuine diversity is that if a young screenwriter wasn't just asked to copy-paste Edgar Wright and wasn't just asked to cast with a palette, if artists were allowed to have something unique, artists would be allowed to follow their own inspiration and then take the movie somewhere where it seemed like it would be from a qualitative level and from a personal level, they would think that that would create the best kind of a movie. So if there were people of a diverse background as far as the writers and directors that the studio has, well, obviously, you don't need to give a quote to Spike Lee to hire a set amount of African American actors. He's gonna do that anyway. You don't need to give a quota to Ang Lee to take other demographics into consideration. Ang Lee is gonna do that anyway. And so if studios just had a diverse and, well, I guess heterogeneous cast of writers, directors, producers, where obviously Disney will have a slightly different house style than Warner Brothers, but outside that, if directors were just allowed to be unique, the way that when the new American cinema generation came after the embarrassment of what Hollywood was in the 1960s, Hollywood studios just allowed the directors to basically, get their wings and fly. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, Robert Altman, Hal Ashby, John Milius, Sidney Lumet might halfway be affiliated with that new American cinema generation. I mean, just absolute brilliance from Hollywood when they just allowed the directors to get their wings and fly. Why can't Hollywood try to follow that winning formula right now? Like, why not just hire some ethnic minorities, female or sexual minorities there as writers, directors, producers, and if there is the kind of situation that you don't need to tell Steven Spielberg to cast more people from Hong Kong if there would be Ang Lee to maybe make a movie set in Hong Kong or something. Like, if Hollywood just hired in a more inclusive manner and wouldn't try to keep the directors down. I have a video talking about how Joseph Kahn was very disillusioned on the set of Torque, where there was essentially a babysitter who didn't allow him to direct. Joseph Kahn was forced to shoot coverage, and he wasn't allowed to make the movie that he wanted to make, and nobody likes Torque because the studio ruined it with their stupid limitations. And if you hire the Joseph Kahn type directors, let them direct, and don't just have them be colorful traffic cops shooting coverage. Like, can't you do that? I mean, there could be, I don't imagine that this generation has the kind of training that the Scorsese, Coppola, Spielberg generation had. I don't think the younger generation can do the Godfather, Taxi Driver, Jaws, Star Wars type successes, but they can do something. Joseph Kahn, he might not be able to do Star Wars, but he can do something a whole lot more than talk. Like, just watch any of his music videos, like Knights of Sidonia from Muse. If Joseph Kahn in his music videos is just allowed to get his wings and fly, why can't Hollywood at least consider doing that? What Hollywood will say is that, it's too expensive to have any loose cannon directors just do something that might lose everyone money. Well, you're gonna lose money anyway by, some lame, play it safe nonsense that the directors themselves aren't, in love with. like Joseph Kahn has basically disowned talk because he wasn't allowed to do what he wanted. Like, you know, if directors will be the first to disown the work by being pointlessly straitjacketed, what type of passions do you think the audience is gonna have? Like, just, I mean, this shouldn't be that difficult, honestly. And I just think that Hollywood, by wanting to hold on to the bad industry practices, by trying to do good and appease the audience, they just do good badly because they want to hold on to all of the worst industry practices. Like, this would have such a simple solution. Hire more people like Ang Lee or Spike Lee or any other Lee. No, but seriously, like the director of Boys Don't Cry, she was talking about in a documentary about female directors in Hollywood, about how she just goes from meeting to meeting and no one will give her a chance because people don't think that she has track record enough. Like, just, why can't you trust in directors like that? I mean, just the kind of freelancer era that Hollywood has, it has diminished Hollywood. Like, Hollywood was stronger when they had people on a monthly contract, people who were taken in to the studio, and then others were allowed to be apprenticed to older professionals. Like, Hollywood was stronger when they had the apprentice model and the in-house model. Hollywood is weaker in this freelance model. Hollywood has less money, less quality products, less cultural relevance, and less goodwill from anyone, whether it's from the industry or the audience. Just change the faulty model. Like, this is not difficult. This is not difficult stuff at all. And, you know, I just think that Hollywood needs to go from failure to failure until they just somehow paint themselves into a corner, and then they look into the history and like, hey, there was that one period where we were getting it right. Maybe we should try to do that too, except with the kind of modernized version. Like, I mean, this shouldn't be difficult. This should not be difficult, honestly. This is such a simple solution to it. Yeah, but anyway, you guys keep worrying about who the actors are. You guys worry about the actors, and then some other people worry about the directors. Anyway, good job, guys. Hang in there, and thanks for watching.